Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting through the noise surrounding one of the most scrutinized relationships of the modern era, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And we're going to do it based strictly on a forensic analysis of the source material.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the undeniable facts, then dive into the wild contradictions in the story. After that, we'll look at the actual environments they shared. And finally, we'll tackle the alleged suppression of key evidence.
Okay, first things first. Let's push all the speculation aside for a minute. What does the public record, the actual evidence, tell us about their connection?
Let's start with a single number, 7. What is that? Well, according to flight logs, that is the number of times Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private planes between 1993 and 1997.
And, as you can see, these were mainly trips shuttling between New York and Florida. Now, the source material is quick to point out that no minors were listed on these specific flight manifests. But think about what 7 flights on a private jet really means. That's not a casual acquaintance. That suggests a pretty significant level of trust and convenience between two people.
And this wasn't some short-lived friendship. The record shows a relationship that spanned over a decade. We're talking about Epstein being at Mar-a-Lago parties, attending Trump's wedding, having his personal number. He was deep inside Trump's social world, with consistent access to his properties and his private life.
So, the association? That's a documented fact. But here's where the story gets really complicated, according to the source material. It's the narrative of how that association supposedly ended.
Okay, you have to hear this. In a 2002 magazine interview, this is what Trump said about Epstein. A terrific guy, a lot of fun to be with. But the source analysis really zeroes in on that last part, his open reference to Epstein's preference for younger women. This quote is a crucial baseline for what he was saying publicly back then.
Now let's fast forward 17 years. Epstein has just been arrested, the world is watching, and suddenly, the story does a complete 180. The terrific guy is now someone he was not a fan of. It's a total reversal.
So, what actually caused this supposed falling out? Well, the answer seems to change depending on when the story was told. One day it's a real estate dispute. The next, it's about harassing a club member's daughter. Then it's just about being a creep. There isn't one single, consistent explanation for the split. It's all over the place.
And this is a really critical point the analysis makes. It argues these shifting stories aren't just a bad memory. Instead, it suggests this is a calculated strategy of narrative control, an effort to find the most politically safe explanation as the scrutiny on Epstein grew more and more intense over the years.
So this brings us to the actual places where they interacted. I mean, what was the context? What were these environments really like?
You know, the plane Trump flew on wasn't just any old private jet. It had a nickname, a notorious one, the Lolita Express. And it got that name for a very dark reason. The analysis argues this reputation wasn't some well-kept secret, it was likely known in their circles, which, raises some pretty tough questions.
So that was Epstein's turf up in the sky. But what about Trump's own territory on the ground? Let's turn to Mar-a-Lago. Because the evidence suggests this was more than just a place they partied.
The source material points to the testimony of Virginia Giuffre as a game-changing piece of data. Her claim that she was recruited into Epstein's trafficking network right there from the Mar-a-Lago spa, well, in the eyes of the analysts, that elevates the property from just a social club to a potential facilitating environment for Epstein's whole operation.
And this creates a huge contradiction in the timeline. It's a critical discrepancy that really undermines the whole idea that he took immediate action against Epstein. I mean, if an employee was allegedly trafficked from your property in 2000, why would you be on the record 2 years later still calling the guy terrific?
Okay, the final layer of this whole thing isn't even about the relationship itself. It's about how the official evidence surrounding it has been handled.
So the source points to what it calls a paradox of transparency. It highlights this pattern of events. First, there's a big campaign promise to declassify and release the Epstein files. Then, it projects this hypothetical scenario where a future AG confirms a client list is under review. And then, a complete 180, a hypothetical reversal from the DOJ saying, nope, no more documents, and that list doesn't even exist. It's this specific pattern of promise then reversal that the analysis flags as a major red flag.
And a reversal like that, it didn't go unnoticed. It sparked some really serious allegations. You had members of Congress talking about a concerted effort to suppress the truth. You had public figures like Elon Musk making claims about the FBI redacting Trump's name. Even a federal judge criticized the DOJ, saying they created an illusion of transparency. These were not small claims.
So when you pull back and look at all these threads together, what's the bottom line? The source material synthesizes it all into 3 core conclusions.
First, the association was undeniably close, personal, and it went on for a long time. That's a fact. Second, the story of how and why it ended appears to have been deliberately manipulated over the years. And third, the way the files were handled suggests an active effort to control and suppress information.
Now, let's be absolutely clear. The source material reviewed does not contain a smoking gun. There is no publicly documented evidence directly tying Donald Trump to Epstein's sex trafficking crimes. But what it does build, piece by piece, is what the source calls a compelling circumstantial picture, one built on personal proximity, those shifting narratives, and the alleged suppression of information.
And that leaves us with one final, very powerful question. Given the documented association, the constantly changing stories, and the allegations of a cover-up, what would full, unconstrained, unfiltered transparency into this nexus truly reveal?